The first lava gate was sealed, while Martha Quince still held the warning wheel in both hands. Red light trembled through the floor of Furnace Valley's gate station. Beneath the grates, the mountain breathed in uneven pulses, not erupting yet, not calm, only gathering itself the way Martha had learned to fear before others smelled smoke. Mining Minister Helene Crowder stood on the upper platform with the closure decree unrolled beside polished black ore samples. "The Magma Weirs are obsolete," she told the gathered foremen, village speakers, and royal mine officers. "They waste recoverable heat into public channels, while lower veins cool unworked. Furnace Valley cannot remain governed by old stone gates and widow superstition." Martha did not look at the crowd. If she looked, she would see the same faces that had watched Ewan Quince carried out beneath a slag cloth. She would hear how quickly grief became blame once the royal mine was lost. "Your husband closed the wrong gate. Your husband drowned crown ore in cooling ash. Your husband saved huts and cost the kingdom a mountain." She kept her hands on the wheel. "A diversion gate is not a shrine," she said. "It is a throat. If you close one without opening the public south channel, pressure will search for the next weakness." Helene's smile stayed precise. "Pressure will search for engineered yield. Under mining supervision, Dragon King Brannoc Sile descended the basalt steps from the royal platform. Every conversation in the station thinned. He wore black furnace armor, not court gold, and the heat in the chamber bent toward him as if it recognized a greater fire. Men who had spent their lives near lava lowered their eyes. Martha did not. She had seen kings stand far from eruption wheels and call distance judgment. Brannoc stopped before her. "The lower tunnels remain open," he said. Martha's fingers tightened. "It is warning season. Minister Crowder assures me the new pressure practice can feed the deep veins without endangering the villages." The new practice was filed through mining permits, not keeper hazard review. Helene stepped down one stair. "The old records are incomplete. The Crown cannot close profitable tunnels every time a widow hears the mountain complain." Martha turned then. "I hear pressure before flame. So did my husband." A hard silence followed Ewan's name. Brannoc's gaze moved to the bronze plaque set into the station wall, where Ewan Quince remained listed as the keeper responsible for the loss of Royal Mine 3. Not dead preserving the worker terraces, not dead turning the west gate until the chain burned through his palms. Responsible for loss. He did not apologize. "The Crown is transferring lava gate authority to the mining office," he said. "You will surrender the wheel." Martha looked at the hand he extended, scarred across the knuckles. Steady, dangerous. The kind of hand that could lift a broken chain or sign away a valley without feeling its heat until too late. He had once stood at Ewan's funeral and promised Martha the station would remain under keeper law until the mountain slept. Now he waited for the wheel. She released it only after setting the warning peg into neutral, so no careless officer could mistake stillness for safety. "Enter." "My objection," Helene sighed. "Mistress Quince has entered objections to every modernization order for 3 years. Enter this one by pressure route," Martha said. "North gate sealed first. Public south channel unopened. Lower tunnels active. Warning wheel rising against the old west pressure mark. Ministerial permit file missing lower hazard review." A clerk hesitated. Brannoc said, "Write it." He had heard Martha read a warning wheel once before, and living people had walked out because of it. Still, he let Helene take the iron rim from her hands. That was not protection. It was record-keeping before obedience. Martha stepped back. Helena took the wheel. The moment the minister's gloved hand touched the iron rim, the Magma Weirs below the floor answered. They did not draw a map. They answered only where pressure had once gone, where it had been stopped, and where new heat now pulled against the old route. A line of molten orange rose inside the ancient stone ribs beneath the grates, It followed the expected north diversion path, struck a dark break where pressure should have passed, then recoiled toward the unopened south channel. Blocked expected route. Unbalanced gate sequence. Pressure looking for release. The crowd saw the glow. They did not understand it. Martha did. Magma Weirs did not name guilt. They did not choose villages over ore, widows over ministers, or dead husbands over kings. They retained pressure routes from eruptions past and brightened where human hands had blocked the path the mountain expected to take. A blocked channel was not a culprit. It was a danger. Helene's grip tightened on the wheel. Not fear. Calculation. The kind that counted ore before evacuation distance. Old stone reacts poorly to new engineering, she said. No, Martha answered. Old stone remembers where heat was allowed to breathe. Brannoc looked down through the grate. For the first time, the hard line of his mouth changed by less than a breath. Then the lower tunnel bell rang. Once, twice, a mine foreman stumbled into the station. The lower cut is heating from beneath. Helene turned sharply. No such road is certified for public hazard review. That answer sounded careful enough to be legal, and narrow enough to be afraid. Martha did not speak. The Magma Weirs answered again, smaller this time. The line did not certify a road, a crime, or a minister's hand. It showed only that new heat was drawing, where public hazard review had no named route. A narrow recent heat line awakened under the floor. It crossed beneath the sealed north diversion, missed the unopened south channel, and vanished into a lower cut no public hazard chart had certified. No one found the cut on the public hazard wall. Brannoc did not move. His eyes stayed on Martha, and the heat between them became more dangerous than flame. He had taken her wheel because she slowed yield. Now the mountain was pulling towards something the public safety maps had not been made to answer. Can you turn it? He asked. No. I can read where it is going. I can open what should never have been closed. But I cannot make lava forgive a blocked throat. Below Furnace Valley, the pressure shifted under stone. Not toward the villages. Not yet. Toward the unregistered lower cut no public safety chain had accounted for. The gate sequence register did not say Martha feared modernization. It said someone had sealed the north throat before the south channel was awake. The register lay open on the basalt judgment slab, its hide pages pinned beneath iron weights. Behind Martha Quince, village speakers stood with ash in their hair and fear held behind their teeth. Above her, mining minister Helene Crowder still held the warning wheel under the new authority of her office. Brannoc Sile had not returned it. He had not apologized. He ordered the gate sequence register, south public channel log, ministerial permit file, warning sheet, lower cut survey chain, and Royal Mine 3 report brought from the station archive. That was not trust in Martha. It was control over panic. The ash-faced foreman repeated his warning. The lower cut is heating from beneath. Not breaking. Heating, Helene answered at once. Then engineering must answer, not ritual. A register is not superstition. Martha said. The lawful warning sequence was written in hands older than Brannoc's reign. South public channel to half open, west relief teeth tested. North throat narrowed only after public flow was breathing. Lower tunnels reduced to cool crew until the warning wheel dropped below the Old West pressure mark. That morning's entry showed the reverse. North throat sealed first. Lower tunnels active. South public channel marked pending. The signature beside the north seal belonged to Master Gate Officer Cale Dern, who stood 2 steps behind Helene with soot on one sleeve. Brannoc looked at him. Did you sign the north seal first? Cale bowed. By transfer instruction, Majesty. Mining office assumed gate sequence at dawn. Before Keeper Hazard Review? Martha asked. The transfer decree superseded station practice. Station practice is what keeps heat from choosing its own road. Helene set one hand on the wheel. The ministerial plan uses controlled lower draw to improve deep vein yield. Public channels bleed heat the Crown can no longer afford to waste. Learned from whom? The surveyors. Then opened the survey chain. The lower cut file came wrapped in red mine cord, not black hazard cord. That mattered. Mine cord tracked yield. Hazard cord tracked lives. Inside was a survey number. Cut L38. Classified as a thermal feeder extension for deep vein assessment. The permit named rock, angle, heat value, and ore access. It did not name village distance. It did not carry a keeper hazard stamp. Its pressure review annex was listed in the index but missing from the public file. Helene's defense was clean and narrow. A missing annex in the public file does not prove omission. Some pressure reviews remain in ministerial engineering archives until yield value is established. Then the public hazard wall was never made to answer for it. That did not make Cut L38 illegal. It made it absent from the safety chain that villagers were supposed to trust. Brannoc's gaze shifted to the wall chart. Every certified cut beneath Furnace Valley was named there in charcoal and brass. Cut L38 was not. Below the station, the Magma Weirs glowed faintly toward the same uncertified lower draw. They did not certify a road, a crime, or a minister's hand. They only confirmed that pressure felt a route the public safety chain could not trace. A low boom rolled under the station. Dust sifted from the roof seams. One village speaker clutched the child beside her. Martha stepped toward the wheel by instinct. 2 mining guards moved. Brannoc lifted 2 fingers. They stopped, not because he had chosen her, because the room needed to stay alive long enough for the records to speak. "Pressure reading," he said. Martha looked at the wheel in Helene's hands. She must set the needle where it stood before she touched it. Helene's eyes cooled. "You think I changed it?" "I think pressure changes when people pretend a wheel is an ornament." The clerk produced Martha's warning sheet, entered before her authority was stripped. North resistance rising. Old West mark hot. South public channel asleep. Lower draw present. Unnamed. The timestamp sat before Brannoc's transfer order. The record did not make him the hand that sealed the gate. It made him the king who signed after the warning already existed. Martha watched him read it. For the first time, his silence did not feel like ignorance. It felt like a gate closing from the other side. "Assurance is not sequence," she said. Brannoc looked at the warning sheet again. "Then we test the sequence before anyone calls the assurance law." Still, no apology came. Still, the wheel remained from her hands. The South Public Channel log offered the next wound. Its opening crew had been delayed by a mining priority order that moved labor to lower tunnel reinforcement. The channel was not broken, not collapsed, not impossible to open. It had not been awakened because men and equipment had been sent below to protect the lower work. Helene said, "Reinforcement protects miners. Opening the South Channel protects everyone above them." Brannoc ordered the lower tunnels reduced to evacuation-ready crew, not gently and not as mercy. He was protecting the mine from becoming public evidence before the court understood the first one. Helene turned sharply. "If you reduce crews now, exposed vein work may cool for weeks." The floor answered with a hiss through the grate. Not eruption. Warning. Martha did not take satisfaction from it. Satisfaction got people killed when mountains were already explaining themselves. Then the Royal Mine 3 report was opened. The public version blamed Martha Quince for closing the west gate during an ore surge and sacrificing Crown property. Martha had read those words until they became a scar with grammar. The keeper copy beneath it was longer, not proof of innocence, not yet, but its pressure notes carried the same shape of danger. North throat narrowed before relief was breathing, South channel marked delayed, and one lower heat notation cut short before the route was named. Ewan's final mark sat beside the warning. Martha's vision blurred. For one breath only, she forced it clear. Brannoc leaned over the page. Why was this not on the plaque? No one answered. Helene did not confess. Cale Dern stared at the floor. The archive clerk twisted his sleeve until the seam tore. Below the station, the Magma Weirs brightened toward the same uncertified lower drawer, and in the Royal Mine 3 report, beside Ewan's last pressure reading, the scraped place did not give a culprit. It gave the next custody question. Who had power to revise a dead keeper's report after the plaque had already blamed him? The scraped line in Ewan Quince's report did not need a name yet. It needed the hand that had been allowed to erase one. Martha Quince stood over the keeper copy while the gate station shook around its own restraint. The mountain had not erupted. Furnace Valley had not been saved. The lower cut remained heated beneath stone. The south public channel remained unopened, and Brannoc Sile still had not returned the warning wheel. Helene Crowder held it on the upper platform, with the composure of a minister who understood that delay could be made to look like disorder. Brannoc ordered the report amendment chain opened. He did not apologize. He did not restore Martha's authority. He gave her permission to read the custody of her dead husband's words, which was not justice. It was a king allowing the woman he had stripped to become useful, while he still held the wheel beyond her reach. The keeper copy had left the station archive the morning after Ewan died. Archive clerk Thomas Rill had signed it out under emergency loss review and sent it to the Royal Mine Loss Board. 3 days later, the public plaque wording had been approved, responsible for loss of Royal Mine 3. Martha did not look at the bronze plaque. She had lived beneath that sentence long enough to know its weight by sound. The full keeper copy returned to the station 2 weeks later. Amended, not destroyed. That would have been too visible. The report had been shortened where it mattered, and preserved where it could still blame a dead man. The scraped order line sat beside Ewan's final pressure notes. The ink around it was older than the scrape, which meant the line had been removed after the first report was written. The amendment ribbon beneath it carried the Mine Loss Board seal, not the Keeper Archive seal. That does not identify the person who revised it, Helene said. No, Martha answered. It identifies the room allowed to turn a keeper's sequence into a dead man's fault. Lord Varick Toll of the Mine Loss Board bowed before Brannoc. The board approved public wording from the loss summary provided. We did not draft every technical line. Who provided the summary? Brannoc asked. The custody slip named 3 offices: Station Archive, Mine Loss Board, and Mining Operations. No single hand. A gap dressed as procedure. A low tick sounded from the warning wheel. Martha's eyes lifted. Helene's hand tightened on the rim. The wheel settles under heat. No, Martha said. It counts pressure when no one wants to. The needle had moved 1 notch toward the Old West mark. Not eruption, not prophecy. A reminder that the sequence had not been corrected while the court read paper. Brannoc ordered the South Channel crew brought forward. They were not at the South Channel. They were in the lower tunnels reinforcing Cut L38's surrounding stone. The labor diversion order came from the deep yield scheduling desk, routed through mining operations, stamped as priority reinforcement. Helene's personal signature was not on it. That absence protected her from accusation. It did not protect the valley from the order. She used the distinction at once. Scheduling desks move crews according to daily tunnel risk. A minister does not stand over every labor shift. No, Martha said. But someone decided the public channel could wait while an uncertified lower drawer received hands, braces, and time. The order did not prove Helene had hidden Cut L38. It proved that, on a warning morning, labor had moved away from the channel that should have breathed first. The missing pressure annex came next. It was found not in the public hazard file, but in a ministerial engineering bundle tied with red mine cord. Its label read, "Yield pending, hazard consolidation." It existed where miners calculated usefulness, not where villagers checked danger. It listed Cut L38 as a thermal feeder extension and noted pressure interaction with Old Westmark unresolved. Final hazard placement after yield confirmation. Martha placed the annex beside the public wall chart. You postponed the safety chain until the ore was worth naming. Helene's answer stayed sharp. Preliminary engineering does not become public hazard until a cut is active. The lower cut is active enough to heat. No one answered that. Cale Dern, the master gate officer, read his transfer instruction aloud. It had come from mining operations after Brannoc's authority transfer, ordering North Throat sealed under ministerial sequence. "Did Minister Crowder hand you the order?" Martha asked. "No." "Did the king?" "No." "Did you ask why the South Channel was still pending?" Cale's throat moved. The transfer instruction stated integrated hazard compliance satisfied. Brannoc turned. The assurance certificate was placed before him. Integrated hazard compliance satisfied. The certificate bore a royal review stamp and a mining compliance mark. It referenced the pressure annex now found outside the public hazard file. Brannoc had signed the authority transfer on that assurance. He had not been tricked by lava. He had been satisfied by a paper that sent danger where villagers could not read it. The record did not make him the man who scraped Ewan's report. It made him the king who accepted a safety answer without requiring the public chain to hold it. Martha did not say that aloud. She did not need to. The heat in his face remained locked behind command, but the paper had reached him. Still, no apology came. Still, the wheel stayed above her. The Magma Weirs beneath the grates glowed toward the unresolved lower drawer, then dimmed. They confirmed pressure mismatch. They did not name who profited, who revised, or who lied. Then the warning wheel clicked again. Once, twice, 3 times. Helene loosened one finger from the rim, then closed it again, as if control could be recovered by grip alone. The brass teeth moved without her hand. Martha went still. The wheel did not open a gate. It did not free Ewan. It did not accuse the minister or pardon the king. It did not even prove Ewan had chosen perfectly. It proved only that his last warning belonged to a lawful pressure order the public report had cut short. It settled into an older pressure order burned into its rim by the last great eruption. West, relief, first. South Channel half open. North Throat last. The same order Ewan's final pressure notes had tried to preserve before the scrape. The same sequence his scraped report had been prevented from testing in public. Below Furnace Valley, the mountain answered with a sound like stone remembering fire. The loss summary that condemned Ewan Quince had no author, only a board seal and 3 missing pressure lines. Martha Quince read that absence before anyone in the gate station admitted it mattered. The full keeper copy still lay open on the basalt slab. Beside it sat the public summary that had taught Furnace Valley what to think of her husband. Gate error, ore loss, keeper responsibility. The words were clean enough to survive on bronze. That cleanliness was the wound. Brannoc Sile ordered the Mine Loss Board register, amendment ribbon custody slip, plaque approval ledger, pressure annex movement roll, labor diversion order, and integrated hazard certificate chain opened before the assembled foreman and village speakers. He did not apologize. He did not return the warning wheel. Helene Crowder remained above Martha on the platform, one hand on the iron rim, her minister's rings bright in the red heat. "The board seal validates the summary," Helene said. "It need not preserve every working pressure line." "No," Martha answered. "But when the missing lines are the only ones explaining why a gate was turned, the summary becomes blame dressed as order." The Mine Loss Board ledger showed the public summary arriving from the mining operations summary desk, not from Ewan's station archive. No individual author signed it. A desk mark stood where a hand should have been. Lord Varick Tolle, chairman of the Mine Loss Board, lowered his eyes to the page. The board approved the wording supplied. "Responsible for loss," Martha said. He did not look at her. The mine was lost. Villages were not. That was not in the summary. The statement struck harder than cruelty, because it was true in the smallest, ugliest way. If the saved worker terraces never entered the page, no board needed to weigh them against crown ore. Brannoc's gaze moved to the plaque ledger. The phrase, "responsible for loss," had been approved 2 days before the amended keeper copy returned to Furnace Valley. The public judgment had been carved before the full report came home. Martha felt the station tilt beneath her, though the floor had not moved. Ewan had been condemned before his own sequence could be tested where people lived with the result. The amendment ribbon came next. It had been attached after the plaque phrase was drafted, before the keeper copy returned to the station archive. The ribbon seal belonged to the Mine Loss Board, but the routing mark beneath it matched mining operations. Not proof of who scraped the line. Proof that the report had passed through a room where summary and amendment could touch without a named keeper watching. The warning wheel clicked once. Helene's fingers closed around the rim. A tremor moved through the floor grates, and the Magma Weirs lit under the station in one narrow red thread. It bent toward the lower drawer, then faded before reaching the public wall chart. Not a map. Not on accusation. Only pressure reminding the court that paper delays did not cool stone. Brannoc turned to the pressure annex movement roll. Who moved the cut L38 annex? The entry read, "Transferred to Ministerial Engineering Bundle, hazard consolidation, pending yield confirmation." A disc mark seen of it. No person. Helene used the gap without shame. Engineering bundles are ordinary before final certification. Hazard consolidation means review is continuing. Then why did the integrated certificate say compliance satisfied? Martha asked. The certificate chain was laid out in order. Annex index, mining compliance mark, royal review stamp, Brannoc's transfer approval, the actual pressure, annex the one stating Old West interaction unresolved, had not traveled with the certificate. Only its index number had. Brannoc had received a clean certificate. Integrated hazard compliance, satisfied. Clean meant readable. It did not mean true. Martha looked at him then, and the distance between them felt hotter than the grates. You signed the version that had already lost the danger. His face remained hard. I signed what my officers certified, and made Keeper Law kneel to it. The words entered the station, and stayed there. He did not punish her for them. He did not repair them, either. The labor diversion order began at the deep yield scheduling desk. From there it moved through mining operations and arrived at the South Channel crew as priority reinforcement for cut L38's surrounding stone. It carried no personal signature from Helen Crowder. That absence did not clear the order. It kept accusation from becoming easy. Deep yield schedules labor by risk and value, Helene said. Reinforcement protects miners from collapse. Public channel opening protects miners from heat taking the wrong throat, Martha said. The foreman who had brought the ash warning nodded once, then seemed afraid he had done it. Brannoc saw that too. The station was becoming a court despite itself, and everyone inside it had begun measuring which truth could be spoken before power answered. Then Martha asked for the certificate to be held near the warning wheel. Helene objected. For what purpose? Heat shadow. A parlot test. A record test, Martha said. If pressure lines were lifted before the certificate was copied, the wheel may show where heat words once lay. Magma toys cannot audit royal papers. No. But furnace paper keeps heat differently where ink was scraped, pressed, and washed. Brannoc allowed it. Not because he believed her fully, because every ordinary record had already made his clean certificate look less clean. The clerk held the certificate near the wheel's old brass teeth. Heat rose. The paper browned at the edges. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, 3 pale lines appeared beneath the satisfied phrase: West Relief untested, South Channel asleep, North Throat premature. No name, no culprit, no complete pardon for Ewan. Only the missing pressure lines that should have stood before any king called the hazard chain satisfied. Martha looked at Brannoc. He looked at the paper he had signed. Below them, Furnace Valley groaned, and the warning wheel turned 1 notch toward the South Channel no one had opened. The South Channel did not open because the warning wheel wanted it. It opened only if iron obeyed the old order. Martha Quince stood at the mouth of the lower gate chamber while heat rolled over the stone steps in waves. Above, in the station court, Helene Crowder still held the warning wheel under mining authority. Below, the public channel waited behind 3 bronze teeth, 2 slag pins, and a maintenance chain that should have been tested before any North Throat was sealed. Brannoc Sile came down the steps behind Martha with 4 guards, 2 mine officers, and no apology. He had not returned the wheel. He had ordered a controlled sequence test, not a restoration of keeper law. The distinction stood between them as sharply as a drawn blade. "You will read," he said. "Cale Dern will operate under mining authority." Martha looked at the gate chamber. "No." One of the guards shifted. Brannoc's eyes narrowed. "Choose your next words carefully." "I am." Cale signed the wrong sequence under transfer instruction. Helene has not worked a warning wheel under eruption pressure. Your officers think a gate is equipment. The South Channel will not hear them in time. Gates do not hear. Neither do kings when paperwork is clean enough. The chamber went silent, except for the mountain beneath them. Brannoc did not soften. That was what made the space between them dangerous. He was close enough for furnace light to touch the scars across his hands, but still far enough inside his authority to make every answer feel like trespass. "What do you require?" he asked. "You turn the West Relief wheel first." A mine officer protested. "Majesty cannot stand inside a pressure chamber during a live test." Then he should not have moved live pressure under a certificate he did not make the public chain answer for. Helene's voice came from above, cool and carrying. "This is theater." "No," Martha said. "Theater is a plaque that blames a dead keeper before his full report returns." Brannoc stepped past his guards. He did not grant her command. He put his hands on the West Relief wheel because the room had reached the point where pride could kill people faster than lava. "Instruction," he said. Martha moved beside him without touching him. "1 tooth only. Stop when the Old West mark hums. Do not force it through silence." His hand closed around the iron. He turned. The wheel resisted, then gave 1 brutal notch. A low hum answered through the floor, deep enough to pass through bone. The Magma Weirs beneath the grate glowed in a single old line toward the West Relief. Not approval, root memory. The South Channel log was read aloud as the hum settled. Last full test, 9 months earlier. Last maintenance chain movement, deferred. Last crew assignment, redirected to lower tunnel reinforcement under deep yield scheduling priority. The maintenance chain itself lay beneath a rust-red cover. Martha crouched. The cover had been sealed with red mine cord, not black hazard cord. Mine cord tracked yield. Hazard cord tracked lives. This chamber was treated as mine support, she said. "Not public relief," Helene answered from the stair. "Temporary reinforcement can involve both." "Then where is the hazard tag?" No one had it. The chain was lifted. Under it, the first south tooth was packed with pale slag dust and fresh brace grit. Not enough to seal the channel forever. Enough to keep it asleep when the North Throat was closed. Brannoc looked at the packed tooth. "Is this obstruction?" "It is delay placed where sequence required readiness." "Is it unlawful?" Not until we read who approved it, under which chain, and whether the hazard office was told. Helene seized that. Then it is maintenance. It is maintenance sitting in the throat. The valley needed a wake. A second boom rolled under them. This one struck closer. Above, the burk. Biffed burr clicked without Helene moving it. Not to name anyone. Not to open anything. Only to count pressure climbing faster than the room was willing to act. Martha turned to Brannoc. Send the village heat. Watch signal. Helen objected. An alarm will empty work lines and risk stampede through the ore bridges. A watch signal is not evacuation. It moves children, old workers, and terrace crews uphill before panic makes the road choose for them. Brannoc did not look at Martha when he gave the order. Heat watch, no full alarm. It was not mercy. It was risk control measured before witnesses. Still, village speakers ran. The assurance certificate chain was brought down while the second tooth was cleared. The Royal Review Office had received an annex index, not the actual pressure annex. The index said, L38 review attached. The attachment had stayed in the engineering bundle marked yield pending. A clean certificate had traveled upward. Dirty risk had stayed below. Brannoc read the chain in the red light. Martha saw him understand the shape of it. He had not known the line was missing. He had signed after an office, made absence look complete. Still, he had signed. Second tooth, she said. His jaw tightened at being commanded in front of minister, miners, and guards. He turned anyway. The South Channel breathed once. A deep sound opened beneath the station, almost like relief. Then it stuttered. The third tooth did not move. Fresh grit poured from the joint, and hissed when it touched the hot floor. Martha caught one fragment with iron tongs. Inside the pale slag was a bronze washer, warped by old heat, stamped with a mine mark no current permit should have carried. Royal Mine 3. The gate chamber went still. The washer did not prove Ewan innocent. It did not prove Helene guilty. It proved the same kind of brace had touched the South Channel once before, in the year Martha's husband died under blame. Below them, the lower cut pulled harder, and the public channel still had one tooth asleep. The third south tooth refused the king's hand. Brannoc Sile had turned 2 wheels under Martha Quince's instruction, and the chamber had heard him. West Relief hummed. The first south tooth breathed. The second had opened with a groan that shook slag dust from the ribs of the gate. But the third remained locked in its socket, packed with grit, old metal, and heat that did not belong there. Above them, Furnace Valley waited under a heat watch signal. Children, elder workers, and terrace crews were moving uphill, not yet running, not yet saved. Below, the lower cut pulled against the mountain like a hungry vein. Martha held the warped bronze washer in iron tongs. Royal Mine 3. The mark was not a confession. It was not a pardon. It was a piece of old mine hardware found inside a public channel tooth that should have carried only hazard-cleared gate fittings. Helene Crowder came down 3 steps, stopping just above the chamber floor. Salvaged metal is common in Furnace Valley. Mine marks survive on half the valley's repairs. Then the salvage ledger will say how it entered a public relief gate, Martha said. Brannoc did not apologize. He did not return the warning wheel. He ordered the salvage ledger, maintenance docket, South Tooth repair sheet, and Royal Mine 3 salvage release brought below. It was still control. It was still his command standing over her knowledge, but he did not ask Cale Dern to read the gate anymore. That mattered less than forgiveness. It mattered more than pride. The maintenance ledger arrived with heat-darkened corners. The third South Tooth had been serviced 12 days before the transfer decree. The entry called the work temporary brace stabilization. Its cord classification was red mine support, not black hazard clearance. Martha looked at Cale. You signed this. The master gate officer's face tightened. I signed completion after the brace crew reported no obstruction. Did you test the tooth? Labor shortage. The channel was scheduled for full motion after yield review. Warning season. Does not wait for yield review. Helene's voice cut in. The brace was meant to preserve the channel until inspection, not disable it. Martha tapped the washer against the ash bowl. A preserved throat does not sleep when it is called to breathe. The salvage release named the source stock. Royal Mine 3. Post-loss recovery. Bronze Gate brace inventory. Released to deep yield scheduling for lower tunnel reinforcement. A later transfer moved surplus washers into South Channel temporary bracing. No personal signature from Helene. No direct order from Brannoc. A chain of usefulness, routed through desks that made danger look like resource management. Brannoc read the release twice. This hardware came from the mine Ewan was blamed for losing. Yes, Martha said. Does that prove the same fault caused both events? No. He looked at her then. The chamber's red light carved his face into severity, but something in his eyes had become harder to hide. He wanted a single answer. Kings were trained to prefer them, a person to punish, a lever to pull, a clean wrong to stand against. Martha gave him none. It proves Mine 3's salvage entered today's public channel without hazard classification, she said, and that the old event is still touching the current one through records your officers treated as separate. A deeper sound struck from beneath the lower cut. One of the mine officers shouted from the upper grate. Heat rising in L38. Reinforcement crews withdrawing. Too late, Helene whispered. Not confession. Calculation meeting consequence. Martha moved to the third tooth. We clear by hand. A guard stepped forward. The heat will take skin. Then bring chain hooks. Brannoc reached for the hook before any guard could. Martha stopped him with one word. No. His expression sharpened. If you pull before I lift the west hum, you will crack the tooth and send pressure into both channels. You told me to stand inside the chamber and turn when commanded. I told you to obey sequence. This is still sequence. For one breath, the Dragon King looked as if command had become a collar around his own throat. Then he lowered the hook. Instruction, he said. Martha leaned close to the third tooth, close enough for sweat to run down her neck. Heat whispered along her left cheek. She listened past the hiss, past the men breathing, past Helene's quiet anger above them. The tooth was not sealed. It was braced asleep. West relief half hold, she said. Do not turn. Hold. Brannoc took the west wheel with both hands and held against the pull. The iron fought him. His scarred knuckles whitened. The chamber trembled. Martha set two hooks under the brace grit and lifted. The bronze washer split. Lava light flashed through the crack. Not a flood, only a blade of orange showing how close pressure had come. Above, the warning wheel clicked once. The third south tooth moved, not fully open, enough to breathe. A roar traveled under the public channel and out toward the old stone spill fields. Far above, village speakers cried out as heat vented away from the terraces instead of toward them. No one cheered. They were all too aware that partial breath was not safety. Then the Royal Mine 3 salvage sheet released a second page from its binding. It had stuck to the back under old resin. Martha saw Ewan's mark before she saw the words. Do not reuse West Gate braces in sleeping teeth. Heat memory remains under strain. The warning had been filed with the salvage inventory, not in the public maintenance docket. Brannoc looked at the page. Helene looked at the page. Cale Dern closed his eyes. Martha held the tongs so tightly her hand began to shake. Ewan had not only left pressure notes, he had warned them not to place the dead mine's metal inside a sleeping relief gate. And someone had let his warning travel with salvage, where no village keeper would be required to read it. The salvage warning reached the wrong room before the heat reached the right one. Martha Quince had seen careless filing kill before. Not all at once, not with a blade. It killed by making the person at the wheel search for a warning after the mountain had already decided which throat to take. Ewan's old page lay beside the cracked bronze washer, its ink browned by years of furnace air. Do not reuse Westgate braces in sleeping teeth. Heat memory remains under strain. The words did not clear him. They did not prove why Royal Mine 3 was lost, who amended his report, or who first decided dead mine metal belonged inside a public channel. They proved only that a warning existed and had been sent into salvage custody instead of maintenance law. Above the chamber, the warning wheel clicked again. The third south tooth was breathing, but only barely. West relief still hummed beneath Brannoc Sile's hands. The lower cut continued to heat, pulling at the pressure the public channel had only begun to release. Martha turned toward the upper platform. "Evacuate the lower tunnels." Helene Crowder answered before the king could. "The lower crews are already withdrawing. Withdrawn miners are not evacuated miners. I want count marks at the Ridge Road, Village Terrace, and Ash Bridge. Children and terrace workers first, ore stores last." A murmur broke across the mine offices. Helene's face sharpened. Royal ore stores contain volatile black ore cores. If heat reaches them, the damage could cripple the valley for years. If heat reaches workers' homes while soldiers guard ore, there may be no valley left to cripple. Brannoc did not look away from the west relief wheel. Sweat ran along his temple and disappeared beneath his collar. "Count marks," he ordered. "Ridge Road, Village Terrace, Ash Bridge, ore stores, after living crews." It was not apology. It was obedience to sequence, because the chamber would punish any other order. Martha nodded once. "Hold west relief until the south channel takes full breath. You speak as if I am a gate chain. You are the only hand strong enough in the room. That does not make it yours." His mouth tightened. He held. The salvage custody roll was brought down, while evacuation bells began above. The Royal Mine 3 braces had been recovered after the old eruption and placed in a cooling yard under mine control. Ewan's warning page was attached to the original release. For 3 years, the bundle carried 2 cords, Red Mine Salvage and Black Hazard Caution. Then, 6 weeks before the current transfer decree, the black cord disappeared. The recatalogue entry read, "Hazard Caution resolved by cooling age, usable for reinforcement. A disc mark seen with it, no person, no keeper countersign." Martha placed the recatalogue entry under the lamp. "Who can remove Black Hazard cord?" Cale Dern spoke reluctantly. "A hazard clerk, a gatekeeper, or an engineering reviewer, if the item is reclassified as mine support." "I did not sign it," Martha said. No one claimed she had. Helene's defense stayed narrow. "Cooling age can resolve heat memory in common braces. Common braces do not come from west gates that held eruption strain. The engineering reviewer may have determined the risk spent. Where is the test?" The test sheet was missing. Not destroyed. Listed. Missing. A boom rolled through the chamber hard enough to knock ash from the ceiling. The third tooth slipped half a notch, then jammed. The west relief wheel fought Brannoc's hold. For one terrible breath, the king's boots slid on hot grit. Martha caught the side chain and braced her shoulder against the stone. "Do not force it," she said. "I am not forcing it. You are resisting panic. There is a difference." His eyes cut to hers. The heat between them carried no softness, only trust made under threat, the kind neither could afford to name. She set the purge hook into the third tooth's lower seam. "When I lift, release a finger's width. That will throw pressure toward the lower cut, only until south breath catches. Too much hold will crack the tooth. Too much release will feed the draw." Helene called from above. "This is guesswork." Martha did not look up. "No, this is the work your file called obsolete." Brannoc released a finger's width. The south channel roared. For the first time, Real air moved through the public throat. Heat poured away from the worker terraces and into the old spill fields beyond the valley wall. The Magma Weirs glowed under the floor, tracing pressure, leaving through a route law had required before profit interrupted it. Not victory, temporary survival. The lower cut still burned. When the chamber steadied, the missing test sheet was found folded inside a yield ledger for cut L38. It had not been written by Helene. It had not been signed by Brannoc. It carried the mark of the engineering review desk and one sentence that turned Martha's stomach cold. Ewan Quince warning, retained for mine salvage record. Public gate maintenance notice. Not required unless brace installed in active relief tooth. The brace had been installed in an active relief tooth. The maintenance notice had not been sent. Brannoc read the line. This time his anger did not hide quickly enough. Helene saw it and stepped into the gap. Engineering review failed to notify maintenance. That is an office fault, not a ministerial scheme. Perhaps, Martha said. She would not let Helene rush into guilt or innocence. Both could become cover if reached too soon. The evacuation count bells rang from above. Ridge Road clear. Village Terrace moving. Ash Bridge incomplete. Then a runner stumbled down the stairs. Ministerial ore carts are blocking the Ash Bridge. The crews cannot pass until the ore train moves. Helene's head snapped toward him. Those carts carry sealed cores. Martha looked at Brannoc. No magic answered for her. No old stone chose. Only the order of value stood naked in the heat. Move the people first, she said, or the mountain will decide what your road is worth. The Ash Bridge was not blocked by panic. It was blocked by ore. Martha Quince heard the difference before the runner finished speaking. Panic scattered. Ore waited in lines, guarded, counted, and defended by men who had been taught that royal value moved before village breath. Above the gate chamber, the evacuation bells struck again. Ridge Road clear. Village Terrace moving. Ash Bridge incomplete. Brannoc Sile still held the west relief wheel. His hands were blackened from iron heat. His guard stood too close. Helene Crowder stood too still, and the warning wheel remained above Martha's reach. He had not apologized. He had not restored her station. He looked at the runner. Move the carts. Helene answered before the order could settle. Sealed black ore cores cannot be shifted under heat surge. If they crack on the bridge, the whole crossing may become unusable. It is already unusable, Martha said. For people. Helene's eyes flashed. A cracked core can poison the bridge stone, and a blocked bridge can trap terrace crews under a pressure turn. Brannoc's jaw tightened. Move them. The words struck the chamber like a gate tooth falling into place. Not mercy, not devotion, emergency command. But for the first time that day, the king's order placed living bodies before ore. The dispatch ledger was brought down, while men above began dragging ox teams toward the Ash Bridge. The carts carried sealed black ore cores from the lower tunnel reinforcement route near Cut L38. Their movement had been authorized under a ministerial priority road clearance order, routed through ore transport control. Helene's policy seal marked the page. Not her hand, not confession. The order used a phrase already too familiar. Integrated hazard compliance, satisfied. Martha placed it beside the certificate that had stripped keeper law from the gates. The same assurance opened the lower cut, delayed the south channel, and sent ore across the evacuation bridge. Helene's voice was cold. A standard compliance phrase exists to prevent every desk from rewriting the same review. No. It exists so one clean sentence can travel farther than the danger beneath it. The floor shuddered. The Magma Weirs glowed under the grates. One line toward the south channel now breathing, one toward the blocked Ash Bridge, one toward the lower draw, pulling heat beneath Cut L38. They did not identify a guilty office. They did not declare the road illegal. They showed resistance points where pressure met human arrangement and had to choose. Martha turned to Brannoc. South Channel needs fuller breath. The third tooth is still unstable. Yes, because West Relief is carrying too much while the North Throat remains sealed. You told me North Throat last. Is still His eyes narrowed. She understood the danger before he named it. If North Throat loosened too soon, lava could feed the lower draw. If it stayed sealed too long, pressure could surge through the worker terraces and ash bridge. The correct order was not a slogan. It was timing measured through heat, sound, and stone that had killed better men than those debating it. Martha stepped close enough for furnace light to catch the sweat at his throat. West hold, south fuller, north last by 1 notch, when I give the word. Not before, Helene said from the stairs. You are letting a stripped keeper command a king. Brannoc did not look at her. No, he said. I am keeping a valley from becoming evidence after the people die. That was not apology, but it was public enough to wound his pride. Martha took the south chain. Full of breath, Brannoc held West Relief. Cale Dern and 2 workers pulled under Martha's count. The south channel opened another tooth width, roaring toward the old spill fields. Above, the ash bridge bell changed rhythm. Carts, moving, not clear. Moving. Then cut L38, answered. A red surge ran beneath the lower route and struck the reinforcement road hard enough to split stone. The shock climbed through the chamber. 1 mine officer fell. Helen seized the stair rail. The Magma Weirs flared toward the lower draw and stopped at a bright knot below the permit line. Blocked, heat, reinforced path, pressure, caught where ore had been taught to matter. Now, Martha said. Brannoc turned the North Throat 1 notch. Only 1. The iron screamed. For 1 terrible heartbeat, all Furnace Valley seemed to hold its breath. Then the West Relief lowered. The South Channel took the greater burden, and heat that had been turning toward the ash bridge slid away into the public spill fields. The evacuation bell rang. Ash bridge clearing. Martha closed her eyes for less than a breath. Not victory. A breath purchased. The surge through cut L38 had cracked the lower reinforcement wall. Guards hauled up a plate of blackened bronze, still smoking, from the road seam. It was not a full map, not a confession, not proof of who had written the order. It was a policy plate. Yield priority before public hazard posting. The words were stamped beneath a mine compliance mark and sealed under reinforcement resin. Helene stared at it. Her face did not break. That plate governs preliminary reinforcement, she said. It does not govern emergency evacuation. It governed the road that blocked one, Martha replied. Brannoc took the plate. The heat burned through his glove, but he did not drop it. Martha looked once toward the ash bridge, where villagers were finally moving past the ore carts. Children first, then terrace crews, then miners blackened from below. Then she saw the lower corner of the plate. A slag mark, old and warped, pressed into the edge. Royal Mine 3. Not Ewan's Pardon. Not the truth yet. But the same dead mine had touched another place where yield was placed before the public route. And this time, Martha was alive to read it before the plaque was carved. The old slag mark on the plate did not accuse Helene Crowder. It accused a policy that had learned to survive one disaster and return in another shape. Martha Quince stood in the gate chamber with the blackened reinforcement plate cooling between iron clamps. Above her, Furnace Valley moved under heat watch bells. Ridge Road clear, ash bridge clearing, lower crews still counting, ore stores still guarded by men who had not yet understood they were last in the sequence now. Brannoc Sile held the North Throat wheel where Martha had ordered him to hold it. He had not apologized. He had not returned the warning wheel. Helene still stood near it on the upper platform, though no one in the chamber now pretended her hand understood the old teeth better than Martha's voice. The plate custody roll arrived, soot-stained and half-warm from the lower root office. Yield priority. Before public hazard posting had not begun as an emergency measure. It had begun as an internal, deep yield policy for preliminary reinforcement around promising veins. From deep yield it had moved through mining operations, then onto plates fastened into lower-cut supports before full public hazard review. Helene's ministerial seal had approved the policy class. Not her hand on this plate, not confession, but authority close enough to carry weight. She kept her voice even. Preliminary reinforcement must occur before public posting, or the work cannot be made safe enough to inspect. Martha looked toward the Ashbridge bells. You made the valley trust routes you had not yet allowed it to see. The Crown cannot publicize every untested vein. Panic closes mines before danger exists. Danger existed when South Channel labor was moved below. Brannoc's grip tightened on the wheel. Enough argument. Count the living. The count marks came in by runner. Village Terrace clear. Ashbridge clear. Lower crews missing 12. Helene's face changed then, but not into guilt. Into calculation meeting, a number it could not reduce to or. Where? Brannoc asked. Cut L. 38 reinforcement level. Martha closed her eyes for one heartbeat. The lower route was still pulling heat. If they opened too much south flow, trapped crews might be cut off by backwash. If they favored the lower cut, the public terraces could feel the pressure turn again. West relief steady, she said. South channel hold at third breath. North throat, do not move. Brannoc obeyed. The word did not pass between them, but everyone saw it. A Dragon King standing in a pressure chamber, hands locked to iron, waiting for a stripped keeper's command. Helene saw it too. That made the air sharper. The Magma Weirs glowed below, thin and red, toward the lower cut and then back through the South Channel. They did not choose the missing men over the ore. They did not tell Martha which life mattered more. They showed where pressure met resistance, where old roots remembered breath, and where new supports had narrowed a path that should have been posted before men worked inside it. Send rescue through the upper service shelf, Martha said. Cale Dern shook his head. That shelf was marked inactive. By whom? The service shelf record came tied to the same policy plate chain. Inactive for public traffic pending yield confirmation. Not collapsed, not unsafe by test. Inactive, because the route had not been admitted to the hazard wall. Brannoc ordered the shelf opened for rescue. Helene objected. If that shelf fails, the crews and rescuers both die. If it holds, Martha said, 12 men live because a public route finally serves the public. The rescue captain waited for Brannoc. The king looked at Martha. She did not soften the answer for him. Open it, he gave the order. While the rescue team climbed, the Royal Mine 3 salvage ledger was spread over the chamber floor. The slag mark on the current plate matched a batch of old reinforcement stock recovered after Ewan's eruption. The same batch had carried Ewan's warning about Westgate braces. The same stock had been recatalogued under deep yield usefulness, away from hazard memory. Then a gate call ledger surfaced from the old mine archive. Not the public report. Not the amended keeper copy. A call ledger, written by wheel clerks. During live eruption, each order marked by bell. Martha knew Ewan's hand before anyone read his name. At first bell, he requested west relief. At second, he requested South Channel half open. At third, the north throat had already been narrowed under mine protection order. At fourth, pressure turned toward the worker terraces. Martha's breath stopped. The next line was not scraped. Ewan Quince ordered Royal Mine 3 opened. As a sacrificial throat. A long silence followed. Helene said very quietly, "That ledger does not prove the mine could have been saved otherwise." "No," Martha said. Her voice almost failed. She forced it steady. It proves the terraces were next. The rescue bells rang from above. 8 found. 10. 12. Alive. The lower route roared as the last crew crossed the upper shelf. Behind them, Cutel 38's reinforcement wall split wider, and black ore fire surged into the empty road where carts had stood minutes before. The royal ore stores began to heat. Helene turned to Brannoc. Majesty, if we do not shield the stores now, we lose the deep yield. Martha looked at the king's hands on the north throat wheel. Not yet, she said. People first. Or last. Ewan understood that before they made his grave into a warning against him. Brannoc did not move. For one terrible moment, crown, minister, ore and memory pressed against his hands. Then he held the wheel under Martha's command, and the gate call ledger lay open between them, saying what the plaque never had. Ewan Quince had not lost the richest mine by one wrong turn. He had opened it because the fire was turning toward Holmes. The royal ore stores began to heat only after the last missing miner crossed the service shelf alive. That order mattered. Martha Quince heard it in the bells before anyone wrote it down. People first, or last. The mountain had not chosen mercy. The gates had not saved the valley by kindness. Furnace Valley had survived because sequence had finally been allowed to matter more than yield. Brannoc Sile still held the north throat wheel. His arms shook from the strain. Furnace light burned along the scars on his hands, and sweat darkened the collar of his black armor. Above him, village speakers, foremen, miners, and royal officers filled the station platform. Helene Crowder stood beside the warning wheel, no longer gripping it, but not bowed either. She did not confess. The records had already begun doing what confession would only try to control. Martha gave the next order. West, relief steady. South channel full breath. North throat one more notch, only after the ore stores vent into the old spill field. A mining officer blanched. That will flood the lower yield chamber. Yes? Helene turned. That chamber holds the richest black ore face opened in 20 years. It is empty of people, Martha said. Brannoc looked at the ore store report, then at the ridge count, then at the gate call ledger, where Ewan's final order lay in a living clerk's hand. When he spoke, his voice carried through the chamber. Do it in Martha Quince's sequence. The south channel opened to full breath. Heat tore through the public throat and roared into the spill fields beyond the valley wall. The north throat loosened last, under Brannoc's hands, and the trapped surge that had been clawing toward terraces and bridge turned downward into the ore stores instead. Black ore cores cracked under the mountain. A deep red flash lit the lower road. Helene closed her eyes once, not in remorse. In calculation meeting a loss it could no longer move onto poorer shoulders. Royal ore burned. Villages did not. When the chamber steadied, Martha did not sit. Her legs wanted to fold, but standing was a witness position, and too much of her life had been rewritten while she was expected to grieve quietly. Brannoc ordered the final records opened in public. The gate call ledger, pressure annex custody roll, labor diversion order, policy plate chain, mining operations summary route, mine loss board approval, and plaque wording ledger were placed on the basalt slab. No Magma Weir named a culprit. No warning wheel pardoned a dead man. The papers did what stone memory had forced the court to read. The pressure annex had been kept in engineering until yield confirmation. The labor order moved the South Channel crew below. The certificate referenced a hazard review the public wall had never received. The loss summary that condemned Ewan came through mining operations with 3 pressure lines missing. The board approved the plaque from that shortened summary. The amendment ribbon returned after blame had already been made public. Helene's ministerial seal sat on the policy class that allowed yield priority before public hazard posting. That did not prove she scraped Ewan's line with her own hand. It proved she governed a system that let ore become visible before danger, and danger become visible only after keepers were blamed. Brannoc removed her from control of volcanic safety, mine hazard posting, and gate labor priority. The deep yield desks were placed under inquiry. The Mine Loss Board's plaque authority was suspended until keeper copies, call ledgers, and village witness records could stand beside ore loss summaries. Helene's face remained hard. You weaken the mines to appease fear. No, Brannoc said. I weakened the valley when I let mining certify the safety chain it profited from. The station fell silent. There it was. Not private regret. Not soft words beside a chamber wall. A king naming his own failure where the valley could hear it. He turned toward Martha. I accepted integrated hazard compliance while the public chain was incomplete. I signed over keeper law after the warning had already been recorded. I called the gates obsolete while depending on them to survive. Martha felt the words reach the place in her chest where Ewan's plaque had lived for 3 years. They did not heal it. They opened it to air. The bronze plaque was taken down before sunset. In front of foremen and village speakers, the new wording was read aloud. Ewan Quince, Lava Gatekeeper, opened Royal Mine 3 as a sacrificial throat after public relief was blocked, and worker terraces entered the pressure path. His full conduct remains recorded in the keeper call ledger. His warning on salvaged braces is restored to hazard law. Martha did not weep until the word sacrificial was spoken. Even then, she did not cover her face. Let them see what the old plaque had required her to carry. Brannoc lifted the warning wheel from its royal stand. For a moment, everyone watched his hands on it and remembered the day he had taken it from her. He brought it down the steps himself and placed it before Martha on the basalt slab. I return the wheel to independent keeper authority, he said. Volcanic safety is severed from mining profit. No gate sequence, hazard annex, labor diversion, or public posting may be controlled by the office that gains from delay. Martha looked at the wheel, then at the village speakers. Keeper authority belongs to the valley before it belongs to me. One by one, the speakers touched the rim. Foreman next, then rescued miners. Only after them did Martha set her hands on the iron. The Magma Weirs warmed beneath the floor. Not celebration. Continuity. That night, after the last count mark was confirmed and the spill fields cooled in red veins under the stars, Brannoc came to the gate chamber without guards. Martha was oiling the west relief chain. He stopped outside the threshold. You may enter if you are here to carry tools. His mouth changed by less than a breath. I am. She handed him the heaviest chain hook. He accepted its weight without claim. For a long while, they worked with only the mountain breathing beneath them. No forgiveness was spoken. No love declared itself cheaply in the heat of survival. At the final wheel, Brannoc waited. Martha looked at his hands on the iron. Not yet, she said. He held still. Only when she nodded did he turn, and Furnace Valley, listening through stone, breathed in the correct order.